Morning, peeps. I'm back, and welcome to a very cold, very wet Christchurch, where we've had the most rain than we've had in the last 50 years. The last 2 days just been torrential. It's finally stopped. The cat's finally got out the house. I haven't. I haven't moved. I've been on this couch horizontal for days. It's been like Noah's Ark out there. You know what I mean? Two by two, the animals have all been legging it because floods. Talk honestly, peeps. Biblical. Luckily, it hasn't gone on for 40 days, but you never know. You never know. Right, so you always hear these people saying, "Don't worry, it might never happen." Common phrase, isn't it? Don't worry, it might never happen. Well, I should have listened to that because the last 4 days or longer, I've been worried sick about Mabuemo, about Wood, about Forest Defenders, all wrecking my game week. And as it turned out, they all blanked. They did nothing. If you own them, bad luck. You know what I mean? Because it happens so often, doesn't it? You get the last game of the game week, you're rubbing your hands because you've got players and everyone else doesn't, and then they go and blank. Well, that's what's happened, peeps. And it means that me complaining about my score of 88 was a bit premature because it actually turned out to be a decent score. I didn't expect it. I thought that somebody would bang double digits, and none of them did. And what an interesting day of football, wasn't it? Man United. How could anything have gone better for them today? A goal against the run of play, a penalty when Garnacho clearly handled it in the lead up. Then the Bilbao player gets sent off for arguing about it. And now United have had a nice easy stroll about. Probably will be not too tired when they play Brentford. Everyone's getting Mabuemo in. I do think United are not going to be as easy as people think they're going to be. They did well against Bournemouth last week. Tottenham have also pretty much cruised through, although they're letting a late goal, which really you'd think they'd be very unhappy about because they're completely dominated. And you'd fancy them to both go through. And great to have an all-British final, wouldn't it? Because we like to see Premier League teams do well. Chelsea too, won 4-1. And Forest losing has really given them opportunity for this top 5 spot. And they're going to have to take it, though. They're not going to get it handed to them on a plate. They've got to beat Liverpool and they've got to do well in their other tough matches. Otherwise, I still think they're going to miss out. Anyway, we're not going to dwell on this. We've got a few things to look at today. I'm going to show you a new tool, or I don't know if it's new, but a tool that ranks your histories in terms of percentage finishes rather than overall rank. Because overall rank, when you've got vastly different amount of players now than you used to have, it kind of changes things, doesn't it? So we'll have a look at that. We'll have a quick look at the Content Creator League first, just to see where everyone ended up. Very quick look. We don't want to waste time on them. So let's have a look. Here we go. So Joe was top, 104, done really well. 104 for him. Wag got 103, thanks to Jackson. Andy, hundreds. Those three all got over 100 or more. Fabio, 96. Az, 94. Bakar, 91. Harry, 89. Myself, 88. Mark, 85, really 77, but did really well considering he'd accidentally played his free hit chip a week before. And last but not least, Late Riser on 84. You'd think everybody would be reasonably happy. Although, like myself, I set myself high standards. I wasn't terribly happy, but it's not as bad as I feared, thanks to Brentford and Forest Assets blanking. But everybody here has done really well. Now, we'll have a look at the overall because it's quite important to, because it illustrates a point I want to make in a moment when we have a look at this tool. So, where are we? We'll have a look at the totals. So, Harry, 6,000 in the world. Fabio, 50. Bakar, 57. Joe, 67. Myself, 68. Andy 72, Wag 119, Mark 137, Ads 148, and Late Riser 332k. So you'd think nearly all of them are going to end up in the top 100k. Maybe not Az and Mark and Late Riser, but they still could. Well, apart from possibly Late Riser. But they've all done pretty well. So we shall have a look at this tool now. And this is a tool that ranks your history and as a percentage. I don't know if you can order it by a percentage. I don't think you can. But this is my one. So you can see I started off learning the game way back when, 7%, 11%, 3%. And then I really hit the top 1%. Because somebody asked on Blue Sky the other day what a decent rank is these days, because it's kind of changed from where it was, and I think it's best to put it in percentage terms. So this is quite a useful sort of tool, and I always say that the top 1% is a good initial benchmark, which now would be a top 100k. Used to be back around this time would be a top 10,000k. You know, you had a lot of managers back then that used to advertise themselves because they'd had 4 or 5 10k finishes in a row. You know, that used to be the big thing. You know, they still do it now, don't they? You know, I've had 6 top 10k finishes and all this type of thing. But now I think top 100k is now like the initial platform that you kind of want to aim for, you know, and like as being an acceptable, I won't call it good, I'll say an acceptable season is now 100k, as in top 1%. A really good season, back then these here were really good. In fact, nobody in the entire world before or since has had 5 seasons in a row to match this sequence here in terms of overall finish. But you can argue that as there are only 1 million players then, rather than 10 million now, you could say that this, in equivalent terms, 400 then is like 4,000 now. That would be like 7,000. 35th then is probably 350 now, and so on. And that's why it's quite interesting in percentage terms. For example, this season here, I wasn't happy because I finished 35k. And it turns out that 35k then is actually worse than last season, where I finished 82k, which is actually better in terms of this metric than that season in game week 15-16. But it's an interesting, because you always get people saying that it's much harder now than it used to be. But I think it's not quite as clear cut as that. I think there's 2 different ways of looking at it. In terms of overall rank, it is definitely harder now because of the sheer numbers. But in terms of top 1%, we can't assume that getting top 1% now is actually the same as getting top 1% then. And the reason is that for that to be the case, the amount of casual players, etc., would have to be the same then as it is now. And I think back then, you had to actually go looking for FPL. You had to have an interest. You had to be actually really interested to even go and play the game back then. It wasn't all, you couldn't just type in FPL and all these websites and videos came up. You had to actually go and search. You really did. You had to go and search. You had to really be interested in it. You had to watch matches because there weren't stats around in those. You actually had to physically watch and use a lot of time to play the game. You couldn't just spend 10 minutes looking at a deadline stream and waltz yourself to a top 1k, which I argue you can now do. You couldn't waltz your way to a top 1% finish back then. You could not do it. You had to put the work in. I used to put a lot of work in terms of actually watching matches and stuff like that, and spending hours and hours talking with people and discussing things, formulating plans, because there was no correct way back then. There was no obvious template. There was no obvious people to copy. In fact, I was probably the first one that people were trying to copy. I remember I had to try and take steps to avoid people copying, like making early transfers to make sure I budgeted, and I'd pick a transfer that used all my money that I know other people wouldn't be able to copy because they wouldn't have had the same budget and that type of thing. But now, to get a 1% finish now, I do believe that anyone can do it. Anyone. You could pick somebody off the street, and all they'd have to do would be to watch the stuff before season started, pick the template, which is like crystal clear by that stage, spend 15 minutes looking at one of the deadline streams, preferably someone like Harry, who's actually proper good at the game, and take note of their ranking orders, their benching orders, and all that type of thing, and their suggestions, and you will end up, as like or not, with a top 100k finish, which is top 1%. So basically you can, I believe, sleepwalk into a top 1% K now, which was previously not the case. Now, if you want to play your own game, like you people that watch me do, if you play your own game, I think that it is no easier now to get a top 1% than it was then, In fact, it might have been easier then, because study and dedication back then, you were rewarded for it. You had an edge over other people because there were not lots of people blabbering to everybody, all and sundry, about what to do. Do you know what I mean? If people wanted to do well, they had to work for it, and now it's not the case. And I haven't even talked about FPL review yet, where you can just plug your team in and it spits out all the transfers. I mean, I know it's not at the level of the people like Harry and that, but even so, I think it makes really good players worse review, but it makes your average players much better. But like I said, I do believe, because I watched FPL have a beer talking to Mars the other day, and they were talking about that kind of subject. People can be a bit dismissive about previous times, and people that weren't around then and playing then. There's only a few 100,000 people playing. It was easy. They weren't there. It wasn't easy. You had to really put the work in and do that. And that was why FPL was that was the golden age, in my opinion, of FPL. When you had to put the work in, but that work was rewarded. You could go and find a good differential that other people didn't spot and wasn't plastered all over everybody's YouTube channels like it is now. So that's that piece. But anyway, go and have a look at this tool, because I do find it quite interesting. And this season here, obviously a massive anomaly over all the others. And it was because I gave up playing about Easter time. I was sick of FPL. I very, very nearly deleted my account. We'd had like 3 or 4 seasons, even though I'd been like 1% or whatever. Well, I wasn't happy because the pricing in those seasons was absolutely awful, and the game had got so boring and stale, and I honestly very, very nearly deleted my account. I'm pleased I didn't, but I very nearly did. And somebody on Blue Sky the other day was saying that those seasons count, like they ruin your record and they count. Well, to me, they don't, because if you want to take time off, if you're mentally not enjoying FPL, or you're struggling with it, or you've got other things going on in your life, or you just need a break, then take a break. It's your team, your rank history, nobody else. It's for nobody else to worry about. Do you know what I mean? Because it's yours. And that's why that's there, because I stopped playing in Easter. And I don't regret doing that because I just wasn't interested in playing FPL. So I stopped it. You know, if you're not enjoying something and it's causing you harm, like mentally or whatever, then don't do it. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I mean? But this is great seeing this, because when you just look at numbers, like in the middle column there, it doesn't tell the same kind of stuff. I think this tells a better story when it's in percentage wise. They needed an extra zero for 2013, didn't they? It would have been 0.001. Anyway, that's enough of that. So what we're going to try and do now is work out how to get an even better rank, because I'm not too happy. 67k is all right, but I'm there now. And traditionally, I finish strongly. And I want to make sure I do that. But thanks to Mr. Krellin and his spreadsheet and these mysterious mythological blanks and doubles that haven't arrived. You know, I've seen this spreadsheet on everybody's show for the last 6 months. And it turned out it was a complete load of bollocks. And there aren't even any doubles. You know, because the doubles, let's have a look at where they are first, right? So, this prick on Reddit has made a mistake, because he said that the FA Cup fixtures have been moved to midweek of 36. Well, they haven't. They've been moved to midweek in 37. So they're staying in game week 37. And I played on Tuesday the 20th of May, which is only 3 days after the FA Cup final. So, that Man City Bournemouth game, if you're looking at getting De Bruyne in, I think this is relevant. This is relevant because that Bournemouth match is only 3 days after, and this is 37 by the way, game week 37 game against Bournemouth, is only 3 days after the FA Cup final. So who knows who will be playing in that match. And again, Palace versus Wolves on the 20th. Most of us have got 3 Palace players. They're not going to be in great shape, are they? 3 days after the FA Cup final. I mean, imagine if they win it. They're still going to be drunk when they play Wolves. It's going to be ridiculous. So, so they've got that game on the 20th. So let's have a look at how that affects. That probably affects 38 as well. So let's have a look at, we'll have a quick look, because this is the point I want to, I've got to get out of there. I've got to get into plan. So we're planning now, peeps, the entire rest of the season. So, because we have to work out who we're buying this week and what affects them. There's only 4 games left. So, game week 38 starts on the 26th of May, which is actually good for those midweek 37 matches, aren't they? Because they're on the 20th of May. So game week 38 is not really affected by those extra fixtures that City have. It is only game week 37 which is effective. And we can see that when everybody else is playing their fixtures, Palace aren't playing, are they? No, this hasn't been updated yet. So that game isn't being played until the 20th now. Okay, so that game's being played on the 20th, which is only 3 days after the FA Cup. And so is the Man City match, being played on the 20th. So really, it's only those fixtures that are affected. When we go to 36, the FA Cup finals on the 17th, remember? So it's not too bad, not too bad. So they have got time for the FA Cup. So I don't think Man City need to rotate against Southampton, for example, just because 6 days later they have the FA Cup. So what? It's the Bournemouth match where we could see a lot of rotation. So in terms of this week, you've nearly all got Saka and you're nearly all taking him out because it's very, very unlikely that Saka plays this week. He played a full 90 the other day. They've got the return leg in a few days and they're losing 1-0. Very surprised if he starts. He wasn't very good against PSG anyway, but he's not going to start right. I mean, they'd be very, very shocked. Very shocked. So, replacements, there are three that most people are looking at. One is De Bruyne. They no longer have a double, but I think that actually helps. That actually helps Man City. Because if they did have a double, he wouldn't have started both of those double games, would he? But now the games are more spread out, he probably will start them. But the counter argument to that is the game week 37 match, as we've just seen 3 days after the FA Cup final. He might well not start. So he's tempting. He's almost captainable material if we find out he's starting against Wolves. He hasn't done too much though, has he? To be honest. I mean, people have bought him in just because they knew he was starting a few weeks ago. But he didn't do a great deal. He's an option. There are two other options, Bowen and Mbeumo. Bowen looks the best for this week, I think, because they've got Tottenham, who are rotation crazy. And Brentford have Man United, but Brentford have also just played tonight, so they don't have a physical advantage over United in the same way that West Ham do over Tottenham, having had a longer rest. And you can argue Tottenham are a bit easier, I think, than United. So, short term, Bowen. Long term, I think Mbeumo's better. His ownership is massive. If you're chasing someone in your mini league who's got Mbeumo, you probably want to get Bowen just to try and run them down. If you're reasonably happy with your rank but just trying to improve naturally, then I think you go with Mbeumo. You could get a huge battering. Honestly, it could be untold, which is why I was terrified about tonight. It would have made a huge difference. You know, a couple of goals from Mbeumo would have made a massive difference. And he wasn't even that heavily owned on the free hit week, because a lot of people benched him on their free hit. But this week, he's hugely owned. Some people are even captaining him. So for me, he is the obvious choice. And I see no reason to not go for the obvious choice. Now, that's my free transfers sorted. If I find out Savinio is obviously I will be playing Isaac and probably Martinez over Henderson. But if I find out Savinio is not starting for any reason, i.e. we get the lineup before the match, it's usually kickoff, then I find out he's not starting. I'm very, very tempted, and I don't think I'll go with Bowen. I'm very tempted to go Savinio to De Bruyne. I've just spotted a flaw in my plan. And the flaw in my plan, peeps, is I've got that awful, awful chip. The assistant manager chip. Awful chip. For example, God, I hate it so much. And I'll tell you why, for why. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. Absolutely winding me up. I thought it was a good table bonus game this week. Palace at home to Forest. Forest have fallen off a cliff. They're tired. They've got no depth. They've had games every 3 or 4 days for a few weeks. They lost 2-0 tonight at home to Brentford. And they're away at Palace. And I thought that's a great table bonus game. I've got 3 Palace players, so I can't play it. So I thought, I'll just stick it on City. I've got 3 City players, so I can't play it. So frustrating. I'm thinking, Savinho to De Bruyne looks great. Can't afford it because then I have to spend money getting my assistant manager. The whole thing is an absolute nightmare. For the last 12 weeks or whenever it is that chip came out, it's been annoying me every single week. I mean, thankfully I played my triple captain and got a lot of points from it, 29 points. But I really wish I'd just played the bloody assistant manager chip because it's so annoying just sitting there. You know, if you still got it, you'll understand my frustration, I think. So, Saka to Mbeumo. Shall be going ahead. I see no reason not to. I'm not overly optimistic this week, but it's not worth me taking the risk. Now I'm on the wrong bloody week. Let's have a look. So, Saka to Mbeumo. This is when you lot switch off in disgust, isn't it? Saka to Mbeumo for free. Start Mbeumo. Bench Sarr. Actually, if I find out Savinho's not playing, I'll just bench a prick. To be quite frank. I mean, he's not worth... I thought he might have been worth taking a hit for De Bruyne, but with having to play the assistant manager chip at some point, I need the money. So I will just go for this. If I don't hear is Savinho starting, maybe just start Sarr and bench him anyway. If I do hear Savinho starting, I start him. Now, I looked at taking a hit for Bowen. Obviously a decent fixture this week, although they're not scoring a great deal of goals. Tottenham are not too stretched tonight. They've got a 2-goal lead. I think they will rotate, but they've got a bit of depth in their team. And, you know, I don't think it's worth a hit, basically, because the fixtures afterwards for West Ham are not fantastic. You know, they're away at Man United. This isn't fantastic. I mean, a lot of people say it is, but it isn't really. Home to Forest, who might have got a bit more in their legs by then, and away at Ipswich, which is good for the last week. So it could repair a hit, I guess, over Savinho. But it's borderline. I think it is borderline. I always do this, don't I? Got to go up, not across. Right, so I should probably go. And the other thing, of course, is whenever I bench Sarr, he gets points. Whenever I sell Sarr, he gets points. Whenever he's in a different competition, he gets points. When he's in my starting 11, he doesn't get points. But what can you do? What can you do? But like I said, if I find out Savinho's starting, I'll play him. Otherwise, I think I will just stick with this. Not take a hit, basically. And also not play the assistant manager chip. So then we shall get to game week 36. There's two things I'm not worried about. Or I am worried about, sorry. And that's my Arsenal defence. My defence in general. My defence in general, I do not like. Do not like it one little bit. So my bench players don't have good fixtures, which is a problem. Front and 11 are okay, but again, Savinho's an issue, isn't he? He's always an issue. We're not likely to find out whether he's starting or not. At least with someone like Bowen, you know. I mean, you know, having to play Sarr at Tottenham, Mateta at Tottenham, it's not great, is it? It's not great. Anyway, peeps, we won't worry too much about my own team. We're going to think about you poor people who've been shafted by Mr. Krellin now. And if you've kept your triple captain, you've got a real problem. A real problem. Because when the hell do you play it? I mean, I haven't got it, but when are you going to play it? I mean, Marmoush at home to Wolves. It's okay. It's not triple captain material, is it? Not really. Let's look at next week. Who can you play it on? There's nobody. In fact, for any of us, whether you've got your triple captain or not, the captaincy, if you're doing well, the captaincy is not what you want to see. What you want to see is a clear-cut captain where everyone puts captaincy on the same player, which rules out kind of variance a little bit, doesn't it? But that's not the case. Every week is like 3 or 4 middling options and no standout. Game week 36, who do you put your triple captain or even your normal captain on in game week 36? There just are not many even Cunha, you'd tempted, wouldn't it? Home to Brighton. Someone at Southampton, City at Southampton, but Haaland's back in the mix. You can't even rely on Mamouche now. You certainly can't rely on De Bruyne, I think, for triple captaincy. Or even normal captaincy is a stretch, isn't it? Unless you actually know that he's starting by cheating and getting the deadline beforehand. But very tricky captains there. 37. You've got Everton home to Southampton. Liverpool away at Brighton. It's good. City home to Bournemouth, which is now 3 days after the FA Cup final. It kind of rules them out, I think. I've absolutely no idea who I'll even captain this week, let alone triple captain. Who do you choose? Do you just go with Salah every week, who hasn't got anything to play for? Because it's really, really difficult. Really difficult. The entire rest of the season, in my opinion, is difficult. At least if we had double game weeks, then you can lump on a player, can't you? Or you can pick double game week players or whatever. But here, no one's even got decent run of fixtures in any of these remaining matches. Game week 38. Who do you triple captain here? Well, again, I think Salah at home to Palace. Maybe. But, someone away at Southampton, Arsenal. It's awful. In terms of actual captaincy, it's awful. In terms of triple captaincy, it's a nightmare. In fact, transfers in general are a nightmare because there's no team which has got like 3 or 4 killer fixtures. This is why I'm just getting Mbeumo in. I'm just covering. I'm just getting in players with high ownership that have a decent record, like Mbeumo. If you like I said, if you're chasing, I think you go with Bowen instead of Mbeumo. You go with De Bruyne and hope for the best. But personally, I don't know. That's 38. At least I've got a decent defence in 38. But there's no great fixtures for anybody. So even having a bad defence, it's not easy to find players to transfer to. I could get Guardiola in for Saliba, for example. You'd think which would mean having to take out a City player, by the way, which makes it even more tricky. But there's no guarantee they'll play all the matches. No guarantee at all. And difficult. So basically, peeps, that's it. Difficult for the rest of the season. And if you want answers, you won't get them from me. But I thought I'd come on and talk about that 1% thing because I thought it was quite interesting. We'll have a quick look on Reddit and see what they're on about. This has only blanked twice since game week 26. He might have only blanked twice, but he hasn't got a huge amount of points, has he really? Look, 6, 11, 9, 2, 5, 8, 2, 9, 8. He's consistently average. No, he's consistently done all right. He's probably averaged, 6 points a week? Something like that, which is pretty good. So he's a good option, I guess, isn't he? Fixtures aren't awful. Like I said, though, nobody's got a real great run. and not many teams have anything to actually play for. Now, somebody here is captaining Vardy. Now, I suspect he is not in the top 1% of managers, this character, but you never know. Maybe he is. But at least he's playing his own game, isn't he? And like I said, this prick got the game weeks mixed up. It's actually game week 37. And I'll just check I'm recording. Thank God I am, because this is about the third time I've done this video. So, let's see. Best team for 35. So it's got Bowen or Boimo in it. Got no Arsenal. It's got O'Brien. This is why O'Brien's been talked about. Because Everton have Ipswich. So Everton defender. Yeah, Everton have got a good run, actually. I mean, maybe I could do Saliba to O'Brien at some point. I mean, is it worth me taking a hit? Not for a I don't think it is for a defender. I mean, if I get a defender next week, it'll be for Kiwi or Saliba. But I don't want to do it for a hit. Trossard home to Bournemouth. I mean, will Trossard play? I mean, he played in the game last night, didn't he? In the Champions League game. Doesn't mean he's going to start the league match. He might have switched. Now he might be playing the league matches. Just don't know, do you? You just don't know. This is putting dying. For you're not going to go there, are you? Probably. I went there once before and that didn't turn out too great. Oh, hang on. What's this? What's this, peeps? Is it still an option? That double game week? I don't think it is it? I got the impression that they just didn't mention it because it wasn't worth mentioning, basically. The fact that it was going to be one, I think they would have done it, wouldn't they? Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like it's no double game weeks. That was considered to be an option at one stage, wasn't it? Haaland not expected to be in the squad versus Wolves, so he's getting better, but he's not involved. He could come on as a sub against Southampton, maybe. It depends, I think. I think it depends if they want to get him ready for the FA Cup final or not, doesn't it? As to whether he plays much against Southampton or not. Probably going to come a bit too soon for him. Now, Forest, bit of a disaster, weren't they? What's happened with Muniz? Oh, he's the Fulham striker. I always get him mixed up with the Palace defender. So not much on Reddit really. So I think we'll wrap it up. As in transfers, I think we'll find if we look at the transfers coming in, I think we'll find Buemo, Bowen, Visser. Main suspects, no sign of De Bruyne on this list. I think, yeah, there will be a few go to De Bruyne. But really, if you haven't got Buemo, I think, unless you're chasing, then he's a safe pick, isn't he? So most people don't have him now, do they? Because they didn't have him. Then he brought him back in for their free hit. So, Saka out for anybody and everybody. Rashford's gone for the season. People wanting to get rid of Palace players, I guess, but probably in no immediate rush. Whereas Saka, I think, is the obvious play. I think Buemo is better than Bowen between now and the end of the season. Whether it turns out that way or not, I don't know. But that's my personal opinion, like I said, unless you're chasing. Anyway, peeps, that's about it. And as for my assistant manager, I still have no clue. And I'm pretty much forced to play it next week because there's only 36, 37, 38. So I should have played it for the last sort of double game weeks. I didn't. I went for bench boost instead. Turned out to be a disaster. But what can you do? You know, I had great luck with my triple captain. Not great luck with my bench boost, but it all evens out, comes out in the wash, and what will be, and anything shall be a bonus between now and the end of the season. So anyway, peeps, like and subscribe, and I shall talk to you all later anyway. And good luck with this game week. We're getting near the end. We're getting there, peeps, slowly but surely, and we'll all be mighty relieved. Until the middle of May, when we'll be thinking, God, this is boring. When's FPL coming back? Anyway, like and subscribe, peeps, and I'll talk to you all later. So cheers for now.